What's up, it's Phil from Fit Will Exposed. In today's episode, I'm going to be breaking down the dumbbell seated shoulder press. Now, it's a lift that a lot of lifters feel like they have to do, and they've been doing it for a very long time now, but a lot of lifters don't get the maximum benefits out of the exercise. And I used to be one of those guys. I used to just do it because everyone else was doing it. When it actually came to shoulder development, I wasn't getting the most out of the lift. So I'm going to give you a couple tips to really maximize shoulder development with this exercise. You guys are going to love it. So first things first, when it comes to a seated dumbbell shoulder press, the most important thing is setting the bench properly. So a lot of people, when they do their seated shoulder presses, they have it like a very high incline. So technically, yes, they are putting the dumbbells over their head, but they're putting a lot more emphasis on the upper chest. So if you really want to maximize delt size, you want the bench to be pretty much vertical. So as you can see, it's vertical. And this is what we're going to be starting off with. So now, I'm going to talk about when you're actually sitting on the bench. You want to make sure that you don't arch too much and you don't push your glutes forward. So that again is going to turn into an incline bench. And keep in mind, there's better upper chest exercises than the seated dumbbell shoulder press. So we want to pretty much try to put as much emphasis on the delts as possible in this video. Yeah, so as I was saying, a lot of people have a tendency to push their glutes forward as the weight starts to get heavy, so that way they can use heavier weights. But keep in mind, we're doing this lift to build the delts, not the ego, not the upper chest, and that's that. So now we're going to talk about when you actually have the weights in your hands. This, in my opinion, is one of the most important tips. Is that a lot of people, when they're doing their dumbbell seated shoulder presses, they have their fists way too close to their head. And what this does is basically makes the dumbbell closer to your center of gravity. It engages more forearms, more biceps, and more traps, so you could lift heavier weights. And in theory, this sounds good. You have to ask yourself, what do you want? You want to lift the heaviest weights possible, or do you want bigger delts? Because you could actually get a lot bigger delts, in my opinion, from having the weight a bit further from your center of gravity. I'm going to post some pictures on the screen of how a lot of the bodybuilders do it, new school, old school, and all the above, and you're going to see that the pattern is that they tend to have the dumbbells further away from their center of gravity, further away from their head. It's not a Y press, but there's a vertical line between the elbow and the dumbbell. So if you want to lift very heavy, most people they just do their seated shoulder presses like this. You see how much my forearms and my biceps are engaged along my traps, and you can lift heavier because the weight is closer to your center of gravity. But for delt development, this may not be the most optimal way to go about things. So in my opinion, and the opinion of a lot of countless bodybuilders out there, whether drug free or not, what you want to do is have the dumbbell right under the elbow, right over the elbow. So something like this would be a lot better. So it's kind of like a seated military press with the barbell, except you're holding onto dumbbells. So as you can see, when I'm doing it this way, my side delts get a way better stretch at the bottom as opposed to if they were here. So it's further away from my center of gravity, and you go a little bit close to the shoulders, but you don't have to touch them because you want to keep constant tension. It's the bodybuilder way to do it. And then you don't have to lock out completely, you can go just a partial lockout. And if you do it like this, you'll notice that you're going to feel that the side delts get a lot more stretched and recruited throughout the whole range of motion. Now I want to talk about elbow placement, because a lot of people want to hit their delts hard, but keep in mind, for longevity in the iron game, we also want people to train our delts hard year in and year out. So a lot of people tend to flare way too much. So they're still applying the principles that I'm talking about, but they're just way too flared. This isn't good for shoulder health. Then you have other groups of people who are way too close in neutral fashion. So I'm a big advocate of going a bit in between, somewhat of like a 45-degree angle. So it looks a bit like this, right here. Okay, so last but not least, if you want to keep your torso as vertical as possible, to hit the delts as hard as possible, I personally found from personal experience and from watching other lifters that if you push your head against the pad too much, it tends to push the glutes forward a bit. So it makes it a bit easier for you to cheat. If you want to prevent cheating and excessive movements, you could separate your head from the pad, if you will. It's going to help you keep a more vertical torso, especially if you brace your core. You're pretty much going to be stationary like this throughout the whole movement and the whole range of motion, which makes it a better delt builder in my opinion. Okay, so there you guys have it, very short and sweet video. These are my best tips when it comes to dumbbell seated shoulder press. Keep in mind, I was doing this lift for years on end. I didn't really get much development in my delts out of it until I started applying the principles I just mentioned in this video. So just a little recap, make sure it's a vertical bench, make sure that you're not pushing the glutes too forward to turn into an incline, make sure that the weights are a bit further from your center of gravity so you get better stretch in the side delts at the bottom, make sure that your head isn't excessively pushing back into the pad. Make sure your core is tight so that way you can keep a more vertical torso, and the list goes on. So if I missed any tips for the seated dumbbell shoulder press, let me know in the comment section below. And hope you guys learned something, build those bigger delts up. See you guys in the next video.